late, or maybe it was never gonna come. And I even saw not only down on the street, like there were some people like, oh, maybe it's a psyop, but there was some talk online. I'm sure some of you have heard the idea of it's a feint. But yeah, there was some people who legitimately started to believe that. Um, but once it started, I mean, it seems that everybody is really, really wants to see this succeed. Like it seems like everybody just has their complete support thrown behind the troops pushing back the Russian invasion, pushing back them hopefully over the river and then further. It seems like I guess they think that this is kind of like their this is the turning point. This is the beginning of the end for the Russians, I guess, is the idea that people want to believe in, because if they don't believe in that, then the belief is in this is a 2 to 3 to 4 to who knows how long, many years war, and people would rather the war end sooner rather than later. But they're also willing to go in the long haul. They're willing to take however struggle as ever long as it takes for freedom. But they'd rather have it over sooner rather than later, obviously.
Thank you, Dylan. Raver, sir, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of helping Ukraine win, shameless plug, I posted it up in the Nest. Lockheed Martin is soliciting votes for the HIMARS as the coolest thing made in Arkansas. So if the listeners could go vote and then go back every day and vote again, it would be really awesome for the people making the Gimlers and the HIMARS down in Camden to know that they are considered to be the craftsmen of the coolest thing made in Arkansas that is playing such a vital role in liberating Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you, Raver. There are many cities which have unfortunately become symbolic places of the country's resistance to this invasion. Dylan was just describing Mykolaiv, which is certainly one. Kharkiv is another. Ukraine's many friends and allies across the world have watched this resistance and perhaps wondered at times, Dylan, if you could answer this, wondered at times, do the people that you met within Mykolaiv, do they realize the scale of solidarity that exists across the free world for their little corner of the world?
It really depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody who's more elderly, somebody who's older, there's going to be a lot, I think, less realization. And unless it's like broadcasted on the radio they listen to or the TV station they watch. So they're not going to like know about like you're not going to find some old Ukrainian babushka and they're going to come up and be like, yes, I'm a fella. Here's my fella avatar. That has yet to exist. Hopefully one day, maybe in the future. We're making the babushkas of the future here. But again, I think a lot more in the younger crowd. There's this kind of feeling of like international solidarity, or this like a lot of them I'm hearing I identify as European, as part of the European Union, as part of the European community, as part of the international community, and especially amongst young people. I think everybody has a general sense that the world is with them, definitely because Zelensky has worked very hard to communicate that. But it's the people who are as interconnected when it comes to our international banking system, our social media, our work, because a lot of young people or middle-aged people, do Zoom calls and with international businesses and stuff like that. They particularly, I think, know. The interconnected people, they 100% know. I think the older folks have a general idea, but it's delivered to them indirectly by somebody like Zelensky, not them going out and like shit posting with the rest of you.
Yes, thank you, Dylan. There's certainly been a lot of people trying to express solidarity for Ukraine in a variety of interesting ways recently. Ben, so you have your hand up. Please do go ahead.
Oh, yeah, two things. The first one, very quickly, if there are members of NAFO Central Command, there is a tweet in the nest that will certainly interest you. More to the point, Dylan, can you tell me which front lines, which fronts you were on? Apparently, you said several months, and you were embedded. So where did you go? And how the different places were different? Like, sorry, that sounds stupid, but what was the fighting like in a different place where you went? And how does it affect, for instance, what the people were saying, but what they need?
So several months ago, I didn't embed it for several months, but several months ago, I embedded with some troops around Zaporozhye, on the Zaporozhye front line. And the experience I had there was extremely interesting because I got interested in foreign policy through the war in Syria. And, you know, these kind of street by street battles were kind of like the stuff that was always plastered on the screen, building by building, room by room. And the experience I got there was a lot of large fields, a lot of open plains, and like you would be told way over there in that tree line a mile away, that's where the Russians are, we're here. And the biggest fear and the biggest weapon out there wasn't like rifles or like snipers or anything like that. It was artillery. It's always been artillery. Artillery is the main deciding factor in, I would say, like 80% of like the battles, like some form of bigger firepower. It's not like you have the most elite special forces unit. It's the amount of shells and rockets you can throw at the enemy side. And that's always been something that Russia has the advantage on when it comes to its fight against Ukraine. It's one of the probably their biggest advantages is the fact that they just have more shells and they have more artillery guns. Hopefully that doesn't stay the case, but that was also the case in Zaporozhye. My personal experience with the type of danger that soldiers face was we were actually going to a frontline position, and on the route there, we were like 2 or 3 miles out. We get a call and we're told like, hey, stop, the position's getting shelled, stay back. So we pull off to the side of the road. We just gotta sit there for 30 minutes. You know, we talk to troops. They kind of just muck about and talk and stuff like that. And then I hear this like weird like buzzing sound, right? Now it wasn't like a buzzing like a bee, but it was like a buzzing like what's a good way? You know how like a phone vibrates? Like those tiny little mechanical engine buzzing kind of sound, the vibration. That's what it was. But I couldn't pin it down. And so I turned over to my friend Patrick Hillsman. He had experience when it comes to the war in Syria. And I asked him, like, do you hear that? He's like, I don't know what he was just saying. I'm like, okay, I just ignore it. Like 5 seconds later, somebody yells, drone, and then they rush us into the forest because what was above us and what I heard was a Russian drone, which had spotted us. And for the next half hour to an hour, I could like go into detail, but we basically had to play like peekaboo with the drone, getting back into the van, trying to drive away. Van breaks down. Eventually we get out of there. But that was probably, and this is all while we hear artillery in the background, knowing that there's active like artillery guns in the area. And we were lucky that the drone wasn't armed. And so the biggest thing that they faced on that front line was drones and artillery guns. Though that seems to be, from all the conversations I've had, that's like the main decider and the majority of the interactions they have with the enemy. And that's the main way they interact with the enemy as well. You never even get to see them.
Yeah, meanwhile in Donbass, in some cases, we've seen videos where literally, I think it was the drone was seeing a Ukrainian unit being literally 10 meters away from the Russian positions. Like they could literally see each other and talk to one another if they wanted. And of course they were shooting at each other, but yeah, so the reality on the different fronts is very, very different.
I did go. I don't know if it's out of my if it's not my time to speak or not, but I did go to the Donbass for a very short period of time, specifically Kramatorsk. And obviously Kramatorsk, I didn't get to see any Russian positions there. I was embedded with troops. I was embedded with aid delivery, and we got to actually do a quite pleasant interview with the people who are taking care of animals in Kramatorsk, because a lot of them are injured, a lot of them are hurt. A lot of animal shelters have, their staff have fled, and there's a wonderful woman up there who's taking care of animals. And up there, it's I mean, I can just it's been described as like a car park strategy, but that is the Russian strategy. I mean, the artillery bombardment was, I mean, again, and they're not at the gates of Kramatorsk. They still got a lot of other places they would have to capture before taking Kramatorsk, places like a fortress. But the bombardment was constant. It got to a point at some times where we had to stop recording because it was just like, okay, there's like a constant sound in the background. Like we got the sound, but we need to get like clear audio for this, and we'd had to wait. It was constant. So I would say the car park strategy is 100% like an honest depiction of what the Russians intend to do. Definitely as we get more up-to-date information about what happened in Mariupol, when it comes to the tragic, the staggering numbers we're getting out of there for the amount of people who died. Or we can look at Russian strategy in Syria, or Russian strategy in Chechnya, or in any of these places where they just flatten cities.
Yes, well said, sir. We are lucky to have another veteran up, my favorite Marine, if I can say that. Daryl, thank you for your service, sir. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Dylan, I just want to ask two questions. One, when you're going around the cities, what is the expression you see on most people's faces? Is it an expression that, of urgency? Is it one of just calm within the, under fire, type thing? Or is it, just normalcy, but they know that the next moment could be, the last? What kind of expressions are you seeing out of the people as you go around?
I mean, it differs depending on the situation. Like like that experience I had in Mykolaiv, obviously the expressions are very different than what you would see on like an average day. But I would say it's hard to say because like the Ukrainian population is incredibly diverse. People react different ways. But if I had to pin down one word, the word I would say is stoic. There's a lot of people who are still cheerful. A lot of soldiers, particularly. Soldiers seem to be a lot more cheerful than a lot of the general population from the ones that I've interacted with at places like Kramatorsk or Mykolaiv. I don't know if that's because they mentally prepared themselves better or what that is, but I would say stoic is the main word I would use.
Okay, because you answered the second question already, and I think when you think about the soldiers, they've been tense for so many hours that I think that the relaxation is just them melting, after the battle, after the intense action has gone on, they actually get a chance to just melt, and I think that's where that whole levity slash, sometimes they sing or whatever, and I think that's just because they lived. And sometimes I think that's the simplest way to put it is they lived.
I remember after we embedded on that one day on the front line on the Zaporozhye front, and we were hanging out with aid workers the next day from an organization called the Angels of War, led by this very interesting man by the name of Alexei. We went and we had a barbecue on the side of the river, and we just, we drank a bit, and it felt, I would say that was a feeling that a lot of them who were also there with us not necessarily on the front, but like in the area. That was a feeling that a lot of us like felt. I think we acted a little bit more wild than usual, almost because we could, just because we could. We had the ability to, which was like enough for us. So we did it anyway because we could, because we were still here. Which, I mean, I don't think that was something we consciously like recognized, or anybody like really consciously recognized at the time. But looking back on our behavior, like on the 72 hours afterwards, there seems to be a pattern anytime we like do any of these trips that like has any number of risk with it, where we kind of just we relax is, I guess, the polite word to use.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you.
Dylan, I'm sorry to bother you. You mentioned that you may use the footage that you got in Mykolaiv. Can I ask him which? Sorry, I forgot how to say it in English. Capacity you were in Ukraine?
I'm freelance. I make my money off of things like YouTube, Patreon, Twitch. I stream a decent amount on Twitch. I do a lot of like American political commentary, but I concentrate on foreign policy. I'm working with like I've been asked to do articles for like New Voice of Ukraine and some other like open source intelligence blogs and stuff. But this footage is all self-funded. I self-fund all of my trips and all of my filming and camera crews, everything. So yeah, that's I'm here on my own capacity, but I'll sometimes do stuff